Hello, Dave Bricker here from theworldsgreatestbook.com, here to talk with you about web fonts and ebooks. Now, there's a very important relationship between ebooks and web fonts because ebooks rely on web technology. Ebooks are basically bundles of HTML and CSS files, and you don't have to know what those are, other than that those are the same files that people make websites with. So there are a few things we need to understand about using fonts on the web or fonts in an ebook. If we look, I'm inside the back end, the administrative area of PubML, which is installed in WordPress, and let's look at the fonts that come pre-installed. You'll notice that the trash can icons, the delete buttons, and the edit buttons on these typefaces are all grayed out. And that is because these fonts are part of the PubML system. They come bundled with it, and for example, Old Standard, Crimson Text, and Allegria are typefaces from Google Web Fonts. They're hosted by Google, and these are part of the choices that users have when they change the typeface in a book to suit their tastes. If the book is offline, or if they just choose it, the fourth choice is Georgia. Georgia is not a web font. It's built into everybody's computer operating system. If you're on a Mac or on a PC, you have Georgia installed, as well as these other typefaces: Courier, Comic Sans, Tahoma, so on and so forth, and Impact. And these typefaces have been chosen because they are used in various styles. The average book only has 2 or 3 typefaces, if that many. So when you're designing a book, one of your goals is not to pack it up with lots of typefaces, but these have been included for specific purposes. The 4 I mentioned, Georgia, Allegria, Crimson Text, and Old Standard, have pretty much been put in there for body copy, and I'll explain why in a moment. A font like Impact is not something you would want to set your text in, but it's great for signage. It's a nice big bold font, so if you have a sign on the door and you want to illustrate that sign, you can use Impact. Comic Sans is likewise a font that the use of which is often discouraged. However, if you want to write a handwritten note, this is a great typeface to use because it looks handwritten, it's easy to read, and it's also a built-in font that's installed in everybody's browser. So when used appropriately, you can get away even with the dreaded Comic Sans. Courier, kind of great for computer text, for an email, for code, things like that. This is a monospace typeface where all of the letters take up the same amount of space. So there's a built-in selection of typefaces, and usually it's enough for most book projects. Certainly, if you visit the bluemonkbook.com, it's made with only these styles and no others. Now, up at the top, you'll also notice a list of fallback fonts. This is the same list of fonts that's built into the web browser. And you'll notice, if you ever look at computer code, at web code, that we rarely specify one typeface. The typeface should be the name that you want, followed by a substitute font, followed by a general category. So for example, if we try to load Comic Sans, and we expect to be able to because it is part of what everybody has in their operating system. But if not, we load whatever the default cursive font is, and if there's no default cursive font, we'll load the default sans serif font. Same with some of these others. So when we select a typeface or add a typeface, we've got the ability to specify a fallback font. If the web font is not available and the font does not exist in the user's operating system, what are our substitute choices that we want to put in? So I'm going to go ahead for an example, and I'm going to create a headline font using a Google Web Font. I'm going to go directly to Google Fonts, and before we choose our headline font, I'm going to look and show you a couple of things that you might notice about the fonts. This is google.com/fonts, 637 font families shown, and these are all fonts that are free and available for you to use on your websites, in your ebooks, whatever. Now, if I choose a font like Droid Serif, you'll notice that it says there are 4 styles available. If I click on this middle icon, the quick use icon, you see that this font gives me normal, normal italic, bold, and bold italic. And by choosing which ones I want, the little meter on the right goes up, and it gives me this impact on page load time because these fonts do need to load. I'm going to go back where I was, and I'm going to choose a typeface here that will be very obviously visible. Now I'm going to use Lobster, but I'm only going to use it for headlines in a sample book. So in order to install this typeface in PubML so I can use it in my ebooks, I'm going to go back to this middle icon and preview the font. It shows me the characters that the typeface contains. Nice script typeface. If I go to this little arrow icon, you'll see that it only comes in one weight. So this is not something I would use for body copy where I had normal text and italic text. And so typeface selection is very important. And these are some of the criteria that went into selecting the default typefaces that are used in PubML. Fonts like Crimson Text and Allegreia. So I'm going to go ahead and now scroll down this page, and it says add this code, this link code to your website. I'm going to hit copy, and then I'm going to hit paste, and I'm going to put that here in the top, and then I'm going to go back to Google Web Fonts, and I'm going to choose this CSS code, and what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this font family code here, and then I'm going to choose what do I want as a substitute here. And boy, it's hard to say. I think in this case I'm going to use Impact because it's a big bold font, and I'm going to hope that the web font is available. If it's not, we'll still have something that's not a script font, but at least it's big and bold. I'm going to click Add Font. And now this says a new font has been added in your font library. If I scroll down, you will see that Lobster is here and it's rendered in the text. And I can edit it if I want. I can click the edit button and it scrolls up. And so if I wanted to change my link code or my fallback font or something, I could do it and click update. In this case, I won't. I'm going to go ahead and preview this font. And again, I have this same pop-up window from Google that shows the characters that are available with the typeface. So my next step, since this is done, is to actually apply this font in an ebook. So I'm going to go to the My Books tab and choose one. So now that I've added my web fonts to the PubML system in the Fonts tab, I'm going to go over to My Books, and here I'm just going to choose the dummy book. And what I want to do is add a style to this book that uses the web font that I added. So I'm going to click Edit Styles here, and the style screen loads, and then I'm going to choose the button here and go to Text Styles. At the bottom of Text Styles, you'll see that I have a list of available styles that have been added. There's a custom style here. I'm going to add another new style, and I'm going to call this one Lobster Script. And I can put a description of this. I'll call it Script Titles. Now, for my font, you'll notice that Lobster, my Google Web font, now exists here. I'm going to go ahead and make this about 32 pixels. You'll see it go here. I'm going to make my line height 38 pixels, make my first line indent 0. I'm going to set the justification to center, and though it won't preview here, I'm going to turn runt control on, and what that will do is put a non-breaking space between these last two words, so that here you can see how awkward it is with one word on the last line. This will dynamically insert a non-breaking space here between liquor and jugs, so if it were to break this way inside your book, you would have two words on the last line. So that's that. I'm going to add a little bit more space here, an extra line break underneath for the next line. And then here we only have one style. If it was a different font, we might have a normal, bold, italic choice. I'm going to go ahead and click Save the Style. One thing to notice about text styles is you'll notice, for example, the running head style, which loads back up. Here is the list. We see lobster script in it, and we see running head is first. You'll notice the font is Reader's Choice, which means that the reader of the book can use the settings panel to change this font. So if inside the book they choose a different typeface, anything that's set to Reader's Choice will change. And if I want to edit the style I just created, I can go back to lobster script, it loads, and I can make modifications. So let me save my information. I'm going to scroll back up, and I'm now going to go to the table of contents, and I'm just going to choose this chapter, Introducing PubML. I'll click the pencil to edit that chapter, and here's some basic text that's loaded up. I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, and I'm going to give it that style of lobster script. You won't see the Google font in here. You'll see the fallback font. But if I save this section now, if you look at the code for this, if we go to text mode, you'll see that it now says class equals no indent, and the second class is PubML lobster script. So we've created this custom class. If I go to preview the book, here it is with the default cover, and I'm going to go here to Introducing, and you can see that I have lobster script in the text, and I have a minimum of 2 words on the last line, and everything is working as it should. So this is how we use Google Web Fonts to create custom type styles inside PubML.